am. Welcome, everybody. Merry Christmas. Oh, we are so grateful here in CSL Bellingham in Bellingham, Washington, because we have had Snowmageddon, and it started to rain about a day ago, and it washed all the sleet and the freezing rain and the ice and the snow all away so that we could be together on Christmas. So thank you for joining us. It's going to be a short and sweet service today because I've given lots of people the day off. The band, not here. The teachers, not here. Even the clicker who clicks the PowerPoint slides has the day off. So it's just me and Michael. So I'm going to invite him up, and he's going to give us an opening prayer.
Welcome to the Reader's Digest version. How is everybody? Merry Christmas. Everybody having fun so far? Great. I am too. I actually have a voice today, which is really nice. So please, the one thing I was thinking about today is light. Today is when the light returns. The days have started to get longer and longer and longer. And I was thinking about the word light and an acronym for light that I discovered a few years ago, which is living in God's higher thoughts, which is sort of nice. But if, the word God triggers you, you can think of it as grace and higher thoughts, whatever you want to do. But just think of that now we're returning to the light, and we all contain the light. So if you'd all like to sit back, close your eyes, just take a nice deep breath, and just embrace the convivial feeling of the season that we're here in now. Because now there's only one power, one presence, one beingness, one light that surrounds us, that guides us, that ties us all together. And I know that I am the living embodiment of that light. I know that I am the unique expression of that light, and I know that each and every one here in person and online is also tied together with that light. And that light becomes a beacon for us to move forward, to evolve, to grow, to become more. And as we become more, our light continues to grow, and it envelops our community. And it envelops our state. And it envelops our country. And it grows to envelop the world. And as we put forward the love and the peace and the joy and the happiness that this season brings, I just declare this good. Knowing that this good and more good continually multiplies and grows and evolves in each of us individually and collectively. And so I just release this, knowing that this good carries forth from this moment forth. And so it is.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, well, I'm a storyteller. And so this day of all days, Christmas morning, I need to tell stories. And sometimes what happens for me is the story asks to be told. Not always. Sometimes I have to sort of search around. But this one actually came to both Joe, my husband, and me over this last week. And came to me and I said, well, I've told that story before a few years ago. And so I just sort of put it aside, and then this morning it was like, no, you're going to tell that story. All right, I'll tell the story, but I'll give you sort of the background for the story first, because it has to do with Christmas and the Christmas story. So for those of you who are joining us from live stream, I don't know if you can see this altar that was created over the Sundays of December by our children here at the center to commemorate Advent in terms of nature. Beautiful. And toward the end, we added the nativity scene that represents all humanity as well as the birth of the light, as Michael so beautifully said in his prayer. So this story has to do with the Magi, or they're often known as the wise men. And I love research, and so I'm sure you know this, but I researched again about these wise men, because it's like, all right, so where did they come from really? I mean, I know that they were not magicians, which a lot of people thought they were, but instead they were high priests of a religion that still exists in the world, in Persia, Iran, Iraq, in that area, called Zoroastrianism. And these were the priests of that order. And one of them was actually said to be the king of Persia. And their tradition, their religion, had to do with, basically, they sort of set the stage for monotheism. So they believed in one infinite wisdom in the form of a God. And that wisdom could be discerned in many different ways in our world, because it was created by that wise one. And so one of the discernments was in the stars. So the priests in this order were astronomers, and they watched the stars and knew their patterns and knew their constellations, and they knew when the stars portended a special event. And so that's where the story in Matthew sort of comes. Matthew, I think it's 2, begins to talk about these wise men, the Magi, who came from the East. And of course, the East was, in those days, Babylon. And so these 3 came from Babylon, and they were following, as it says in Matthew, they were following their understanding of the stars. And the stars had predicted that there would be a great king of the Jews that would be born. And they were bringing gifts to honor this new king. Whether we think of it as a mistake or not, what happened was they felt they should pass through and acknowledge their presence in the land of King Herod. And King Herod heard why they were traveling, and he became very upset. He didn't want there to be a king of the Jews. He was, put in charge by the Romans, and he wanted everything to be just the way it was. So he got everybody kind of riled up. And he didn't say anything to the kings about this, but he said, well, when you get to Bethlehem, let me know if you find him, and I'll come worship him too, which of course was not his plan at all. His plan was to send soldiers to kill the baby. So the wise men, in watching him, being priests and very wise, realized their mistake and went on, committed to not going back by way of King Herod. And so they traveled on to Bethlehem. And for me, I've always wondered, well, how did they know exactly where? And part of their training was to pay attention to other prophecies. And so in the Jewish tradition, in the Hebrew Bible, there's a very clear expectation that the king, the next king, the Messiah, would come out of the lineage of David, that famous David and Goliath guy, and one of the cities of David. Well, Bethlehem is one of the cities of David. So they were not off in their understanding. Am I boring you so far? Okay, because this is all background for the actual story that wants to be told. So they went and offered gold and frankincense and myrrh, which were very precious items, and still are in our day, to this newborn king. I could go on, but so they go a different route home. And Herod realizes, oh, they're not coming back. And so he starts to mobilize his troops. And about that time, the baby's about a week old by now, Joseph has a dream. And in the dream, an angel visits and warns Joseph that he needs to flee into Egypt because they are in danger. And so Joseph wakes up from the dream. And I don't know about you in dreams, but oftentimes, first of all, I don't remember dreams sometimes. And second of all, I usually don't pay attention to them. But here they were, and they had this angel visit them in a dream. And so they packed up and they left. And they left by the coast road, which was the easiest way to get from Bethlehem into Egypt, which was not under Herod's rule. And so they're going, and pretty soon they realize, this is the start of the story, pretty soon they realize that the troops are coming after them. And so they're trying to hurry, but for those of you who have had children, it's hard to hurry when you're nursing a newborn, and so they're going as fast as they can, and they can tell that they're being followed. And so they get to this one place, and it's starting to be dark, and they go up a country road, and they knock on the door of someone's house, and they say, we don't want to put you in danger, but is there anywhere we could hide? Not in your house. You don't need to say that you've seen us. We don't want you to be killed, but they're after us and they're going to kill us. And the farmer said, not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So they go on. They go back down the road, and they go up to the next road, and they go up and they find a house, and they knock on the door. Same story. But this time the farmer says, well, I just planted corn in the fields across the way, and there's a place in the field that dips down just a little bit, and maybe if you lay totally flat and can keep the baby quiet, they won't see you. And so he, under cover of darkness, takes them to this field that's been planted with corn. And in this very shallow dip, they all lay down. And Mary's nursing the baby to keep the baby quiet. And they can hear the soldiers coming down the road. And they hear him at the first farmer's house. And they can hear, yelling and threatening. And the farmer is like, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I'm just a farmer. Nothing's happened here. So they come to the farmer who helped. Same thing, threatening. And the farmer says, I don't know what you're talking about. You can search my house. So they do. They search his house. They search his barns. They can't find anything. And the farmer says, I'm just a farmer. Maybe they're further up the road. So off they go. Well, by now, it's daylight. After they've searched this whole house and the barn. And so they're going down the road, and the cornfield is right in front of them across the road. And in the night, the corn has grown so high that it's hidden Joseph, Mary, and the baby. And all they see is young corn sprouting up, and off they go. And Joseph and Mary make it to Egypt. I knew you were worried about that. And they stay there for a while before going back. And that's the miracle story that's called the miracle of the cornfield. And it's depicted in lots and lots of medieval art and believed by many, many people. And so since it's believed, and since I'm a storyteller, I decided I would find out about this whole miracle of the corn thing. Because it's like, okay, the guy planted the corn maybe a day or two before they arrived. And I'm thinking, all right, is it a genuine miracle? So I looked up corn. Did you know the corn grows 1 to 2 inches every single night? And that it totally could have been possible that this story was maybe true? I didn't know corn grew that fast. I knew it made sounds when it grew because I've been in a farmhouse when that was happening. So that's the story. It goes on from there. And the reason I'm bringing it to you today is around every illumined being, there are stories like this. There are miracle stories about, in the East they call them devas, but devas are basically angels. There's stories of, miraculous happenings. There's stories of how this illumined being from the time the baby was born could perform miracles himself or herself in ways that were totally unexpected and sometimes funny. And these stories are all over the world, and they're all around the different saints and illumined people that we know of. So there's stories about Muhammad. There's stories about the Buddha. There's stories about Jesus. There's stories about Moses. There's stories about Abraham. You go down the list, and all these people that have been invited into this illumined state, people spin stories around them. And I find it wonderful and a little sad. So the wonderful part is there's a recognition of how magical it is to have someone arrive in the world that is fully illumined in one way or another. And I'm using illumined on purpose. You could call it enlightened. You could call it God ordained, but basically someone who has achieved a level of awareness where their connection to the divine is unbroken. And so the light that the divine is shining out of them and through them in their words, in their actions, and simply in their way in the world. And so people see that. And because it is so incredibly different than many people's experience of living, they spin stories about magic and miracles and angels and devas and all kinds of things, all manner of things, mythical beasts and everything like that, to help themselves, first of all, feel the awe of being with someone like that or hearing about someone like that, but also to make them special. And that's the sad part. Because there's not a single one of those illumined people who ever has said, yep, I'm different, tough on you. No. To a single person, they've all said the same kinds of words, which was, no, I'm not different than you. I'm not. I simply am awake to my innate nature, to my true self. And you can be too. And here's how. And all of them have found a way to speak about a pathway to go from being darkened in some facet of our connection to the divine to completely connected. And the pathways work, all of them. The problem is we don't. Joe and I were talking about this just today. It's like, okay, well, there's more to do. The instructions are fairly clear. It just depends on where your orientation might be in terms of which ones work for you in your life and how you are. So the Magi, that part of the story, because stories have so many layers of meaning, to me, has to do with this wisdom that is within us and available and can be brought forward by following a particular wisdom path or tradition. And so there they are on the altar as a symbol of, the great wisdom that can move in anyone, any sacred human. And wisdom always carries gifts. Wisdom always carries gifts. And you yourself, all of you listening, already have achieved a degree of wisdom, I'm fairly certain. And whatever the wisdom that you carry is, it has a gift. And you can't help but offer it. It's just part of the wisdom. So it's not like you're even aware of it, because you're just at this level of connection where it's part of who you are and you give it out. Most of us have, hopefully, a relative or a friend who wouldn't be necessarily a Jesus or a Muhammad or, but is someone that carries the gift and unconsciously and all the time gives it out. My grandmother was one of those, illumined, not so much, but very, very full of light, yes. And her gift was love. She just radiated love. She just gave it out. She couldn't help it. So she became, the grandma everybody wanted in the neighborhood. And she was the one that, did things that people were like, oh my God, your grandmother is so awesome, et cetera, et cetera. We all have people like that. It's part of the wisdom, the Magi inside. And then the angel in the dream. I love angels. I love them. At one point I said that, and I was inundated with angels for 10 years. I've given most of them away now. But there's one in the women's bathroom that's really beautiful. In one of the stalls, there's a photograph that was taken by a blind photographer of a person that was dressed up as an angel. And, of course, he couldn't see. And so he took the picture by listening to this person as they came down from a ladder. And so all you see is the robes and the feet of this angel, and it's called Descending Angel. It's an incredible picture. So angels, in terms of what they could mean for us, in terms of this story of an angel coming in a dream and telling Joseph, whoa, you need to move, you need to go, you need to... Well, for me, it's very clear that we all have divine guidance. I don't know if that's something that you feel you have, but I believe we all have that, and that it's that connection. When Carl Jung was alive, the great psychoanalyst, he talked about where we were connected to this source, to this place. And it was where the personality self and the divine meet. And in that meeting, the guidance can come through. And so for me, whenever I hear talk of angels or devas or any of that, I'm on alert, because there's a wisdom that is seeking to move through, a guidance that's coming to my personality self. Now the problem is that it's coming to my personality self. And my personality self, I don't know about yours, but mine is like, yeah, no, that can't be right. Why would I do that? And thank God Joseph, at least as far as we know, Joseph didn't do that. Or maybe he did. And the angel was like, hey, in the next dream. I don't know. But what I do know is that guidance is available. And it comes through, and training the personality self to trust that guidance is the trickiest part of the spiritual path that I've encountered. Because, of course, the question I always get when I'm teaching about this is this: well, how do I know that it's not just my personality making something up, my ego saying I should do this? How do I know the difference between divine guidance and my ego self saying, go do this? And the truth of the matter is, there's only a few things I know that help discern which is what. The ego often, as you probably are very well aware, is motivated mostly by fear. And so often the message from the ego could be skillfully cloaked, but if you pay attention to what you're being guided with, it's often fear. Whereas divine guidance, it doesn't know fear. It has no fear. It only has its divine self in all expression. And so the guidance from that source tends never, in my experience, has anything to do with fear. And usually is very positive. Now, in this story, of course, the angel is warning Joseph. And what I think about that is this story was written 70 to 100 years later than this whole story was taking place. And that the ego got in there as the story was told over and over, because in those days, oral transmission was how stories moved in society. And I have a feeling someone stuck the warning in instead of the angel saying, you need to go to Egypt right now. You should go now. So following guidance is the next part. So Joseph and Mary, at least according to this story, followed that guidance. And in Matthew, this is the only place where this story occurs, by the way. In all four of the Gospels, this is the only place. And so also in this Gospel is something called the Massacre of the Innocents. And what that was so Herod, to make sure that the king of the Jews that had just been born wasn't going to make it, those same soldiers, before they chased Joseph and Mary, slaughtered every male child who was 2 years old or younger. massacre of the innocents. Actually, the Catholic Church has said that they think that might be a myth. But it lives on December, I think it's December 28th. It's a holy day in the Catholic Church still. So Joseph and Mary follow guidance. And, that's actually not particularly shocking at this point in the story, because let's go rewind all the way back to here's Mary, purportedly a virgin, who's visited by an angel and is told, you're going to become pregnant because God wants you to be pregnant. You will be pregnant. And so without any of the machinations that sacred humans go through to become pregnant, she becomes pregnant. So she's already had an experience, an encounter with something that is so beyond that she's just kind of in a state of, all right. And Joseph, he's kind of going along going, well, all righty then. Am I like a stepfather, or where am I in this? So they've already encountered something that makes no sense at an ego level that they're having to work with for 9 months. And then they have this child, and then they receive guidance. And so naturally, they would be like, all right, we're being protected. And they would move with it. Wouldn't that be nice if when we received guidance, we did that? We said, all right, I'm being protected. I'm being guided. I should probably follow this advice. I should probably go in the direction that it's speaking to me about. My own experience is that I am apparently very hard-headed about all this stuff, even though I believe in it, heart and soul. And so when Spirit is sending guidance my way, I tend to go, but fill in the blank. But it's not convenient right now. But I need to still make money. But, and on it goes, the ego, ego, ego. So my New Year's resolution in part is, when that guidance arises, I will follow it without a but. Just do it. Just do what you're being guided to do. And then the miracle of the corn. I love that part of the story, whether it ever really happened or not. And for me, what that part of the story means to you and to me is that there truly are things that seem miraculous in life. And the founder of our tradition, the Science of Mind, used to say that, things that we now call miracles, as we evolve as sacred humans, will become normal. And he said that because he understood, and I understand, and I imagine you do too, that there are invisible laws, spiritual laws that surround us and flow in us that we are using whether we are aware of it or not. And that the more we align ourselves with those laws and allow them to operate unimpeded by any but, those laws, simply like any mechanical law, like gravity, you take something on our planet, happens to be a Bible, and you drop it and it falls. Well, spiritual laws are just as consistent. They're just as reliable. But because no one taught us about those things, really, for most of us, it's a long time believing that that could actually be the way it is, that we could actually access a law that says yes to our wildest dreams, access a law that provides information that is beyond the ego mind, and that in following that, we literally would have things unfold right out in front of us to make that happen. And it would seem miraculous. And, it is, and it's not. It's simply the law at work. But boy, I can remember as a young student learning about spiritual laws and learning about how what you think about, you bring about, that whole law of, so of course, as a young person, I decided that the way to try this out was to get a parking space. It's, Science Mind 101, get a parking space. And so I visualized having a parking space. I was living in Tucson at the time. It was very busy around the university. There was very little parking. And so I just visualized. And lo and behold, it happened. And my ego said, coincidence. And so I did it again and again and again. And every time the ego would say, coincidence, until finally I said, what's it going to take? At which point the ego goes, okay, well, maybe it's not. And we went on to something else. The laws are here. They operate infallibly, just like gravity. And the more aware we become of the power of our mind and our connection to the divine, the more we can line up with the highest expression of who we are, the illumined part, and bring it out more and more. So that's the Christmas message from me, and I really appreciate you coming. So let me do a prayer, and it's only like not even 5 after 11, so I'm going to give you the announcements, and then we have a potluck happening. I think some people will be coming more like 11:30, so we'll just play Christmas music and hang out. So let's do a prayer. Prayers are a way of lining up with the spiritual laws and invoking through deeply held belief and understanding the law in our favor. So as I speak this word for myself, if you would like this to be true, you can simply say yes in your own mind to this truth for yourself. On this Christmas day, which celebrates the miracle of the light returning into the world, I remember that the light is with me, that there is a wisdom more powerful even than the wisdom that guided the Magi, that is moving in all sacred humans and in all things. And it is moved by love, an infinite well of love that never runs dry. And this love, coupled with wisdom, is alive in me, seeking always to offer what it knows and what it is, so that I may too become a light in this world. Sometimes the guidance of this love and wisdom is very simple, and sometimes it's very unexpected. And what I accept now for myself is an openness of mind and heart to receive the guidance offered, whether simple or unexpected, and to say yes, and to move with that yes in whatever direction is indicated. I know that as I accept this willingness in myself to say yes and to move with the yes, more and more guidance is revealed. And my life becomes steady, open, illumined, peaceful. And I myself become more and more of a vessel for the indwelling qualities of love and compassion, wisdom, kindness, and above all, light. So I accept and give great thanks for my own willingness to open more fully and to allow. And I am blessed by this. Please say with me, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happening at the center because there's a couple of things going on you might want to be involved with. The first that I wanted you to know about was the world. Oh, I forgot. We're supposed to do an offertory. We're so out of cue because we don't have music. Well, the ushers are going to come forward while I'm doing the announcements. How's that? So the first thing is the World Healing Meditation, and that's happening this coming Saturday morning. And Saturday morning at 4 a.m., there will be many of us who are gathered in the classroom, which is through those doors, to participate in a global event. It's a synchronized meditation and prayer session that goes on all around the world. And we are one of the centers for it happening here. It's led by our practitioner, Rana Biggs, who sets up a very, very beautiful altar in the classroom and offers a lovely meditation and closing prayer. It's super simple. And we realize, of course, that 4 a.m. is not everybody's time in the morning. Some of you, maybe if you're a night owl like my son, might actually be up at 4 before you've gone to bed. So you might want to come. But if you're an early bird like me, maybe you're up because you're up. But for those of the people that fall in the middle, here's what I want you to know. We didn't set that time. Whoever figured out doing the World Healing Meditation chose Greenwich Mean Time. And so those lucky people in Europe are going to be like noon or 1, but we're 4. And so if you can't make it up here, but the roads are supposed to be clear, but if you can't make it up here, then set your alarm. Sit up in bed and do your own meditation for peace, because that's really what this is about. And many, many things have come out of this synchronized way of being together in prayer and meditation. And certainly now more than ever, knowing peace, holding healing for so many of the world's woes is a very powerful thing to do. I personally will be at Disneyland. And so I can't promise that I will even be able to wake up at 4, because that's the second day of Disneyland. So Grandma's going to be a little tired, but I'm going to try. I'll set my alarm and I'll get up and I'll do my prayers. Because it's important. So that's happening. And then we have a brand new website. And Philip, in the Santa hat there and the golfing Christmas sweater, has really done an incredible job. And we'd love you to go and look at it. So just type in CSL Bellingham with no hyphen. Our old website had a hyphen. CSL Bellingham, and it should take you to the new site. And you can take a look around, see what's there. What's there is a calendar of events, and what's there is also a way to register for classes or retreats or workshops. And so it's really a valuable site for all of us. This coming Sunday, our practitioner unit is offering an incredible opportunity to you. So next Sunday, of course, is New Year's Day. And no one's playing the recorder at that one either. But what they are doing is after the Sunday service, they're inviting any of you who have an intention that you would really like to see manifested in this coming year to stay for a little bit and to bring that intention to one of the practitioners. They'll be set up in a way that you'll be able to wait, and then someone will guide you to one of the practitioners who will do a prayer for you and your intention. And of course, I've been speaking about spiritual laws. And to offer an intention into the law so that guidance can arise in that intention unfolding is a very powerful thing to do, particularly at the start of a new year. So you're welcome. It's totally free. They're offering this to you because they really know the power of prayer. So that's happening next Sunday. And then Reverend Zena, who's here, she is offering one of my favorite classes. She's going to be teaching it, and it starts on January 10th, which is a Tuesday. It's offered both on Zoom or in person in our classroom, and it's a class on visioning. And so it goes right along with that prayer of intention. So visioning is a spiritual practice to open to guidance, and to allow the guidance to suggest a path forward. And so this class is 6 weeks long, right? 6 weeks long from 6 to 9 p.m. And it teaches and also provides an opportunity to vision, to learn how to do it, and then to do it and practice it with a wonderful group of students who will be joining you. So registration for that class has opened on our website, the new website, and all you need to do is go there and you'll find registration signups and click on that and you'll find visioning as the class. Click on that and you're all set to go. I think it's really such a valuable thing. Visioning is really how so much of what you see at our center, how so much has happened through that very directed spiritual practice. So I invite you into that class. Really wonderful opportunity. And lastly, we have for the last 5 years been doing a program called Family Promise with lots of other congregations. And over those 5 years, just like in our lives, that program has had to change dramatically. When we first started, we were paired with St. Paul's Episcopal, and they have a really incredible kitchen. And so we would take our cooks over there and we make a meal in their kitchen, and they were the ones providing temporary housing in their sanctuary. And so we would join together for a week at a time, 4 times a year, to house families and feed families who would then be moved into temporary housing, like not temporary, they would be moved into apartments or homes. They would be helped to find jobs. Their kids would be tutored. There was all sorts of stuff going on. And then COVID came. And that program had to morph and change because it wasn't safe to be doing that kind of thing. So our Family Promise duties, which were cooking, became grocery shopping, which super easy. Not quite as satisfying as cooking together and, serving the meal to everybody, but still a very valuable spiritual practice. So that's what's been happening ever since COVID. And what so often happens, right? What Family Promise, the organization, found out is actually this is a lot easier for everybody, for the families, for the organization that's seeking to find them jobs and housing, and even for us. But what happened this coming year, is St. Paul's went, nah, we can't keep being part of this. So now instead of what they did before is they would take 3 days and we would take 3 days. And now they're not taking any days. So we have a week coming up in January, and we need a few volunteers who are willing to grocery shop. And there's a recipe list and requests from the families, and we go out and we shop for the families and we deliver it to their doors. And it's sort of like Christmas all year round for the kids, because they've learned that every time somebody shows up with a box or a bag, it means there's going to be yummy food that's going to be prepared. So if you would like to be part of the Family Promise volunteer team here at the center for this coming year, either once or if you like it more than that, would you please see Patty? Is that okay, Patty? Yeah, Patty, you want to raise your hand? So she would love to have some help. She's one of the 2 volunteers that we have right now. And so we need a few more. And you get reimbursed by the center because we give money into a fund that allows us to pay for those groceries, so it doesn't come out of your pocket for very long. We reimburse you right away. So thank you in advance for any of you that would be willing to do that. I think that's plenty for now. We have all kinds of, well, you know what? Joe there is in the kitchen, and Joe, you're doing drumming this Wednesday night, aren't you? Yeah, so if you would like to have a holiday festive thing going on, drumming happens this Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. And we have, if you have a chance before you leave, look in there. We keep having donations of drums. And so that closet is chock-a-block full of more drums and percussion instruments than we could possibly use, except on drum night. So you're welcome to come even if you don't have a drum and be part of it. And children are more than welcome to come as well. The last Wednesday of every month that drumming is offered is an opportunity to learn some rhythms. So it's really a neat time to come if you're wanting to learn how to do particular rhythms that align with the chakras. Fascinating. All right, well, I smell turkey. And so we're going to close now. Merry Christmas to you all. For those of us that are staying, we'll just move chairs and get tables out, and we'll have a wonderful potluck in 15, 20 minutes. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.